Hello, and welcome to Cottage Meeple, where we take you to the cottage every week to play games with us. Today, we are going to talk about modern board games that you can play with young kids. Kevin and I have two young kids. We have a 4-year-old and we have a 6-year-old. They both love board games. Our oldest in particular loves board games. It is a hobby that I love sharing with him. We play a lot of games in the evenings and have some of our best conversations around the board game table. I think that's where the best memories are made. He tells me about his day, about things that are bothering him, just as we're sitting around playing board games together. In school, he's in grade 1. His teacher actually sends home printouts of very basic board games, roll and move type board games, and they're required to play that every week for homework because board games are so great for kids with social development skills, taking turns, being a good winner, being a good loser. And they actually require in my son's school for us to play board games together every single week, which is really exciting. So, one thing with playing board games with your kid is I don't personally want to always play Uno or Monopoly Junior or Chutes and Ladders. Nothing wrong with those games, but that's not my idea of fun. So I like to introduce to my kids some modern board games that are fun for them to play, but also fun for me to play with them. Without further ado, let's get started on our list. The very first one is an honorable mention. And the reason this one is an honorable mention and not on the actual list is because it's the actual only board game that is marketed towards kids specifically. However, this game is amazing. It is a kid's version of a grown-up modern board game, but the theming is cute and it's complex enough that a grown-up still likes it. And in fact, I don't think I would play this with a kid under 6 years old. And that is My Little Scythe. So this is the children's version of Scythe. And it's very cute. Instead of battles, you have pie fights. You have friendship points to see who is nicer to each other. You get bonuses when you're nice to your friends. You get friendship points taken away when you're mean to your friends. And it still has that area control, resource control component that Scythe has. And it's probably one of my son's favorite games, but also one I love playing too. I would play this without my son. It's just that amazing. Totally worth the pickup. Okay, so the next game is just one of those small games you can throw in your pocket, and it's easy to table, easy to play, and that is Bandito. Now this is a little tiny game that takes up a whole table to play, but it's cooperative. You are trying to capture these bandits that are escaping your prison, and you almost never win, but it's fun. It has a really good table presence. You're just taking turns, playing cards, trying to cut off potential exits. Plays super quickly. This is 15 minutes, and it's a nice little end to a day. This game here is actually one of mine and Kevin's first games we ever played, and now I love playing it with my kids, and that is Forbidden Island. It is a game similar mechanics to Pandemic. I think it's the same designer as Pandemic. You are trying to get off Forbidden Island. You're collecting relics. It's also a cooperative game, so whenever there is reading, whenever there is problem solving, you can work through it together. Cooperative games are perfect to play with kids because there's no hidden information that they can't read or they can't deal with on their own. This is a fun one. My 6-year-old in particular loves dinosaurs. And this is a fun little dino game called Upside Down Draftosaurus. This one's called Draftosaurus. You grab handfuls of dinosaurs. You pick one to play out into your dinosaur zoo. With my oldest, anything with a dinosaur on it is something he wants to play. We have Dinosaur World upstairs, and anytime he sees it, he immediately gravitates towards it and wants to learn how to play it. Unfortunately, that one requires more reading, but Draftosaurus does not, and it's perfect. Once you tell him what each region is and what dinosaurs he should be placing there, he's good to go, and it's easy, no reading required for young kids. Another game that's great to play with young kids, it was an early game into our hobby, was Suro. Placing tiles, and when you place a tile, it moves a rock, and you're trying to get your opponents off the board while staying on the board yourself. Super basic, super quick gameplay, 15 to 20 minutes a game. That's another thing to keep in mind with young kids is how long they can sit and focus for, and that's something that the more games you play with your child, the longer they can sit and focus. My youngest could probably sit for 10 minutes and play Suro. My oldest, who's only 6, can sit for an hour and play My Little Side. So that's another thing that board games teach your kids, which is really exciting. Here's a fun one. Sometimes as a grown-up, it is difficult to play games with kids because they tend to be a little bit slow. They make decisions you wouldn't make. But the best thing to do is just ride it out, let them make that decision, and then eventually you're going to have a kid who's on the same level with you, and that's really exciting. This game in particular, Splendor, and we have the Marvel one. I would say a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old can play this. They can be a little slow. You might need a little bit of help helping them choose things if they need it, but there's no reading, which is fantastic. The original Splendor would work the same, but I know my 6-year-old likes the superhero theme. This one can be a little slow. I would say playing with kids as young as 5 or 6, but it's worth it because you're teaching them the skills and they're going to keep getting better and better at it as you go forward. So that is Splendor. Here's another one. I played this one at PAX last year, and I have played it on BGA a lot since then, and it's fantastic. A great one to play with littles, and that is Seven Wonders Architects. But there's no reading. You're picking a card from 3 piles to either create your architect, or to build up your army, or to gain some knowledge. And it's just a really simple game that kids do not have a hard time with. This is a game I play with my son a lot. He can beat me at it. And it's just an abstract strategy game. And it's Santorini. Santorini is fantastic. It's chess-like. And one benefit with this game is you can simplify it or you can make it harder. So, for example, when I first taught Ben, my oldest, we just played basic Santorini, where you move, you build, and that's it. Very quickly, he wanted to add in the god powers. And now we play with the god powers, and then he wanted to add in the harder god powers. And he's not necessarily always good at it, but the more you play, it doesn't matter if he's good at it. That's going to give your kids the skills to play a little bit longer, to get better at those games. Santorini, fantastic little game, abstract strategy, simple. A game can play in 5 to 10 minutes, and you can sit down and play a few games in the evening. Another game that my kids really like is another cooperative game on the list, another superhero game, and that is Marvel United. This is another co-op game. Very little reading required, and because it's co-op, all the information is open, so you can have a parent or someone older read that information. Very simple rules, maybe some complex strategy that it takes them a while to learn and get, but the basic rules to get them playing is super simple and super easy. Plus, the minifigures are really conducive to playing with kids. I followed some accounts on Instagram that use those to teach their kids how to paint miniatures, which is fun. The Marvel theme is perfect for little ones, especially ones who are into superheroes. And it's a fun little game to sit around and play at your family's table. Second to last, let's do this one, is Arch Ravels. Arch Ravels is a game about knitting. I am a knitter. I enjoy games about knitting. I wouldn't say the theme necessarily gravitates towards kids, but the simplicity of the game itself, its action selection, and it's an easy game for kids to learn. The colors are pretty. It has game trays. We love game trays in this house. The components are really nice, really tactile. It's a good experience for the kiddos. And it's a nice light game that's fun for an adult, but also easy for your kids to play too. I have said that the games are not ranked on this list. There is one exception, and that is because this is probably my son's favorite game. We play it the most. It is a cooperative game, and this one does require a little bit of reading, but my son is 6, he's learning to read in class, and he can match words, and that is Castle Panic. When my son was little, like 3 years old, we got my first Castle Panic. I would say that gets outgrown pretty quickly, but Castle Panic is perfect. It's a cooperative game. There's some reading required, but because it's cooperative, a grown-up can help with that, and he can also match words. So if it says Archer on the board, he can match it with a card that says Archer in his hand because he can see that the words match. It's super simple. It probably takes the box is 45 minutes for it to play, and it's our favorite family board game. You get new monsters on the board every turn. You have to battle monsters, protect your castle, because as soon as the monsters attack your castle, you're done and you've lost the game. That being said, I feel like we've only lost this game a handful of times. It's not one of those games, I think, that is hard to win. Correct me if I'm wrong or if your experience is different. But my son really likes this. I'd actually like to get expansions for this game. It is our favorite family weight game. And that is some of our favorite family games that we play with our kids that aren't necessarily directed towards kids. If you do have little ones, even if you don't know that they would like it, start small with them. Play Uno. Play Chutes and Ladders. And then just work your way up. Playing games with my kids and sharing a hobby with my kids is like some of the most exciting moments and memories I have. To be able to find something you love and be able to share that with your kiddos. Thanks for tuning in to Cottage Meeple, and we'll see you next week at the cottage. Thanks, everyone. Future studio here. It needs some cleanup. We're going to have a video coming up about reorganizing all these games, putting up some meeples around the room, creating our little board game dungeon, as I like to call it. Getting some lighting and stuff in here. But thanks for tuning in.